So if we want to do a live, we can do live. Oh, we are doing. Look at that,
There
Jerry.
we are.
Yeah, I started it like 3 minutes ago. I was just waiting.
All right.
That sounds dirty. You're being
start
streamed.
sharing it on Facebook and just share with people, and then it'll be good.
Yeah, we are live.
I'm trying to do my what do you call this thing? I'm trying to do my Walmart grocery store app.
Girl, what you getting from Walmart that you can't just drive over there and get?
Go inside. They have to go inside. I don't need no more steps. I got enough steps here right now.
She only goes to the store to get COVID. She has everything else ordered.
Oh, and pumpkin spice. I have to get pumpkin spice. I'm a pumpkin spice person.
Wait, Pepper said they had, didn't you talk about some donuts they have there that are unique to Walmart that you're a fan?
Yes, they're raspberry filled powdered donuts.
Powdered donut.
Did you say raspberry?
Yes, the raspberry filled. They are just the Walmart brand. And if you buy them, buy multiple boxes and they freeze. Because they snatch them up off the shelf really fast.
They're hard
Weren't
to
those
find.
like really, really
Walmart.
popular back in like
It's
the 90s? Like, didn't they used to make those like in bulk? Because I remember my dad
Yes.
used to always have those.
Yeah, they're hard to find now, though.
They're stuck on a cargo ship in LA. That's what's going on.
That
Or-
is
With a lot
Or
of
like I
9/11
saw this morning-
I hope not. Oh,
Or I saw this morning that they're in the ocean because some of the cargoes fell into the ocean.
Uh-oh,
You're
someone's not
very
getting their
secret.
Lego.
That happens a lot, though. It happens way more than you think.
We got 5 people watching.
5? Who are the 5?
I don't know. Anonymous 1, 2, and 3.
unanimous.
Well, hello, Anonymous.
So hello, everybody that's watching. We are the sisters. We are the Grand Canyon Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence here in Phoenix, Arizona. We are doing our live talking show. We do every month. Well, we try to do every month. We did miss a couple months, but we're back. And this month is October. It's a fun, nice and cool here in Phoenix morning. And basically, we want to talk about, because October is Mental Health Awareness Month. It's also, there is Coming Out Day that happened this month. There's Spirit Day that happened. And
Yay, October.
and October, there's also Halloween too. So
Isn't
there's so much
October
things
Breast
that
Cancer
happen
Awareness
now.
as well?
Yes. So we wanted to talk and mingle with you and say hello, and tell you that we are still here. We are out and about too, but most of us are still being safe and being careful and doing what we got to do to protect ourselves. And we want you to do the same thing. So we want to bring our joy and love and happiness to you, and we want to expiate that stigmatic guilt that society puts on you for being who you are. We want to get that out of there. So we do it virtually. We also do it in person too, but times have changed and we got to do this stuff. So if we can just go around and introduce all the sisters and just say something about mental health. So Sister Mimosa, start off.
Well, hello. I am Sister Mimosa Romero. Nice to meet you. Whoever's there, call me. Remember how I used to do that with the phone? But now you don't do that. Call me and say something about mental health. Talking about stigmatic guilt, I am so curious to talk through, why do you think people have stigma around? Why do you think there's a stigma around mental health? Not right now. I'm just curious as why people are okay going to get a checkup, but talk about a therapist and suddenly barriers go up. Very intrigued by that.
Well,
All right.
If you understand from probably in the 30s, 40s, 50s even, going to a therapist was a huge thing. It's like you didn't go to a therapist unless you were like, you had a nervous breakdown. And the other part of it was, men did not go to therapists. Only women went to therapists. They took what they call mother's little helpers, which were tranquilizers. That's what you did. That's how you dealt with, all the stress of that. And that's where a lot of that stigma comes from. I think that's where a lot of it comes from is our past relatives. It was unthinkable to say, oh my God, here she's going to a therapist. She must really be sick. I think that's where a lot of it comes from.
And I know if you're anything like me, I grew up in a very small podunk country town. Imagine that's coming from there. But it was not something that was ever really discussed, like even within home life. Like it was never something that was like, therapy is good or anything like that. It was just never said. It was just what's your issue and deal with it and move on. So I think a lot of it was just kind of shoved back into the closet because of that generation and that time frame and just pushing to get through because that's all that they were taught and know. So.
Well, I think to add to that also, I mean, back in the different generations, it would also be, it's okay to, talk about your personal stuff with your parents, but don't air it out publicly and things like that. So that added to the stigma as well. And then stigma in itself, it's anything that you don't understand, people just consider that a stigma.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with astigmatism.
Which people don't understand either.
Right.
Don't forget to say your names, everybody.
Novice Polana, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I am Novice Sister Polana Jockstrap. I am really not aware of somebody personally that may have mental health issues per se, but I know that most people in some point in their life deal with their own personal depression, their own personal issues. And yeah, a lot of us don't want it aired out in public, that, they don't want it talked about. They don't want their friends knowing. It's like, yeah, I have this problem. I get depressed. It's like, it's one of those things, but I think talking about it connects us more. And I think that's the important part. It connects us more to each other. It makes us more of a family, especially a family that we are not biologically a part of.
I'm actually going to conflict with you on one tiny little piece of that comment.
Go ahead.
First off, I'm Sister Eva, everyone. Hello, hello. Personally, I think that just because you don't see it or you're not aware of it, everyone has some sort of mental health issue. It doesn't matter who you is. Everyone has something, even if it's something just as small as, oh, did I remember to lock the door? That's actually technically part of OCD, no matter how big or how little. So everyone has some form of mental health.
So we all crazy.
Sister Alada?
I am Sister Alada Hupa. I have to say that unlike Polana, I have dealt with mental illnesses and so forth throughout generations, as well as my own personal battles, especially this last year with being kind of out in the middle of nowhere, not having the transportation, not having the connection, and not having family out here. It's kind of weighed a lot, and the depression, the anxiety, those kind of aspects there, and especially PTSD, which is something that like a lot of people don't think about, but it does. Those negative moments that you live through do definitely re-emerge later on. And I'm learning that big time and having to come face to face with things that I thought had already been bypassed and processed and moved on from. So a little bit of everything out there. And like Ava was saying, everybody pretty much has a little tinge of it. Some people just, that little tinge and outward influences really trigger it a lot more than most, I think. So.
Okay, thank you. Sister Sugar?
Hi, I'm Sister Sugar Incognito. My real face. I actually, and most of you won't know this, I actually have a background in mental health. I, back in the day, was part of a founding organization called Tunnel Light, and we dealt with children who have mental health issues in the arena of education, making sure schools provided them with the special education they needed for, because there are laws once you get that special ed label that apply to you, and you get much better services. So we worked with families, and to date, Tunnel Light's still running, and it has helped over 6,000 families across the world dealing with their children and mental health issues. So I have a big background in this, and this is my big connection with Sister Adora, because she deals with, of course, mental health with adults, and it's two different worlds. So we used to have massive conversations about mental health. So I'm happy to be a part. Out of face.
Thank you. Now, Sister Pepper.
Hi, I'm Novice Pepper Grinder, and I guess where I have issues and I deal with this on a daily basis. I overthink a lot of things, and it gets stuck in my head. And there are times that I do wake up in the middle of the night and can't shut it off. So I've just been doing a lot more meditation and just quiet time to myself, just trying to calm myself. It has a combination of, life outside of work and with work. So it, and I have, a lot of friends and family that, that deal with a lot of issues also. So, but you just try to deal with it the best you possibly can on a daily basis. And, I just say, have someone that you really can rely on and talk to, when you need to get it out of your system.
Thank you. Sister Sophie, can you speak?
I'm Sister B. Sophia Shadow, Sister Sophie. I'm currently working, so I might have to cut off real quick, but I have some background in the mental health field too. I was a behavioral health tech for seriously mentally ill group homes, and I actually learned a lot, especially when it came to schizophrenics and even with sex offenders, where that sex offenders can actually be considered a mental health issue, not necessarily overactive sex thing. And then I also did some study with counseling. So mental health, everyone does have some mental health. It's just a matter of level of seriousness. Some are more serious than others. Like I deal with depression, but I can handle it without medication or seeing a doctor. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. And Sister Jerry.
I am Sister Jareth Harry Iriola. I like bringing statistics. I have been aware of and working on my own mental health issues for over a decade. And I am very fond of NAMI. There is a NAMI in Phoenix that is a vegan dessert place, but I'm not talking about that one. It's the National Alliance for Mental Illness, and they do a bunch of nonprofit and statistic and educational research. And they basically have come up with some new data and statistics that talk about the fact that like 1 in 5 people actually have a mental illness, which mental illness means that you're dealing with something longer term, whether it's acute or chronic, versus maybe you just have depression because somebody passed away or something, which like totally valid for you to have depression during that time. But if it's a chronic or ongoing thing, 1 out of 5 people have that. So we probably all know at least a handful of people that are dealing with something that's a little bit more severe. And even more interesting to what we're talking about in regard to coming out day and spirit day and all that, is that like 44% of people that identify as LGBTQ plus will have some sort of mental illness that comes up and is diagnosed within like a chronic 12-year period. So that's just really important and really key for us to remember, that as we get into minority groups or people that tend to have less resources, that we struggle more. And that includes people of color, LGBT people, et cetera. Like we're talking about special education students, they tend to have more mental health concerns as well. So I just want to bring that statistic, and hopefully everybody can kind of keep that in mind when we're talking about these two different things that maybe do overlap significantly.
So if it's 1 in 5, that means 2 people in this room are crazy.
I think it's safe to say that
Just in case Sophie
almost
has
all
to
of us
go,
are crazy.
Sophie, do you want to just take a minute to talk about what your event is tomorrow? Because I think it's in line with what we're talking about too. And then if you have to go, you can go, of course.
Yep, she's gone.
There you go. Well, if you're watching, what's the event? Does somebody know the name of it? So like
Sisters 54.
54.
Takeoff of Studio 54. It's pretty much basically a party like you would at Studio 54. But the way I look at it, not all of us actually attended Studio 54, but during that time, we probably had our own local venues to go to that was like Studio 54. The show tomorrow, I'm happy about it because we have Regina Gazelle performing. Whoops, gotta go.
Later.
But it tied to this, I believe, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, it's a fundraiser for the Trevor Project, isn't it?
It is, and it's actually Sunday, not tomorrow. Wait, no, today is Saturday. Oh my gosh, I'm thinking it's Friday.
It's tomorrow, I believe, at 5 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yep.
So it's at Cruising 7.
If you're watching in Phoenix and you want to go have a good time, it's at Cruising on 7. Is that right?
Yes, C7. Yep.
Come see us for Sunday Fun Day.
Doors open
Sunday
at
for the
5.
Trevor Project.
Show starts at 5:30.
Yeah, come see me pass out on stage while I do an upbeat number, not my ballads as normal. This is actually good. I figured I'd get a disco song in there. I don't know.
Oh, you're pulling out the Whitney again?
It will be her first and last death drop.
Her cornet is going to be a disco ball.
It won't be a death drop, it'll be a sit drop because it'll just be sitting down. So as we talk about mental health, I just want to make a disclaimer that we are not certified counselors. We are not anything like that. Some of us have worked in the mental field and we have worked in behavioral health and stuff like that. But just let you know, there are people out there. If you need resources, reach out to the sisters and we'll connect you to that. But we are not counselors. We aren't anything like that. We are just people that love to help our community. And if we see somebody struggling and we see somebody that's having issues, we want to sit there and talk with them. Those are the sister moments that we all go through. And those are blessings to us because it's that ability to sit there and talk, because that's just what some people need sometimes, is to talk.
Right.
After that, they can figure out what they want to do, but sometimes you just need to vent, and that's what we're here for. That's why we dress the way we do. Some people do have clown phobias, but some people just see us as beacons of light and help. And that's what we're here to do. So in this month, Mental Health Awareness Month and Depression Awareness Month, it's not something that's just a month thing. It's forever, and so reaching out to family and friends and community members and just saying hi. How are you doing? What's up? Is everything okay? You need anything? I know that since COVID, we kind of been able to go do things on our own, get out of the community, get out of our house and stuff like that. But there are some people that are still in their house because they just are not ready to get back into society. And those are the people that you really need to seek out and talk to, because you just never know what they're going through. And like somebody said, somebody's mental health is different from other mental health, and somebody's mental health may not be, a huge thing, but we all have some kind of mental health inside of us that needs to be spoken to or talked about or treated. A hug works. I mean, I know we can't do hugs and stuff like that with the with COVID and stuff, but if you're able to do it, a hug is the most wonderful medicine that you can ever be. And even just talking to somebody, it's great. So,
and the second one is a smile.
Acknowledging somebody. Look them in the face, smile.
Acknowledgement goes a long ways, I think, with mental health as well, because you start to feel where you're not present and that you're a burden. And I think a lot of times by just acknowledging and just seeing somebody eye to eye, and like you said, a smile, like that can make a big difference in somebody's life and maybe help them open up a little bit and realize that there are opportunities out there for them to vent to.
Right.
I'm curious about something for the group, because we talk a lot about mental health almost in the framework of a mental health problem, the unspoken word I hear us talking about. What is everyone's kind of floss? If toothpaste keeps cavities away, what are your practices, or what do y'all do to keep that keeps you healthy? Because there's always that side, as maintenance and upkeep is just as important as treating something going wrong.
I have to say, as an overthinker, I have to stop and put myself in the moment.
How do you do that though? How do you fit? What things do you do?
Well, a lot of the times I'll sit down and make a list. That was something that was provided to me about pros and cons, long-term versus short-term. Rather than looking at the whole picture, take it section by section so you're not so overwhelmed. a lot of meditation, spending downtime doing things that I do like to do. Things like that really help kind of acknowledge the moment and put me into that mindset of, okay, I'm thinking way too far. Let me solve this problem and move on to the next one. So I think a lot of it with me, at least, is just finding and realizing that I'm going into that panic mode and writing out like a list or a thought process of saying, this is what needs to be done now. This can wait for this time frame, so I'm not so overwhelmed in that moment. And the other one, I think, is just opening and being talk and like being able to say to somebody, hey, this is what I'm feeling. This is my thought process. Why am I feeling this? What is your thought process? Like, getting somebody else's take on it, I think, helps too.
I think another really good way to cope with that kind of stuff is to just escape. I can't talk. Is to escape mentally. You know, have a hobby, read a book, listen to music, watch a movie. Just get your mind out of whatever the situation may be. I know it sounds easy to do, but it isn't necessarily that easy. But it is a really good way that you could do it no matter where you are. You can always take a moment to step away. Everyone has a phone. You can pull up the news or well, not necessarily news, because that might actually antagonize it, but have Kindle or something like that, or play a mindless game on your phone or something.
And sometimes I think that also helps trigger your thought process so that when you come back, you are renewed with looking at the situation and it's not so overwhelming at that time too. So that's a great opportunity, I think, is taking that moment away for yourself.
What's that old saying? Clear eyes see. Gosh, I can't remember it. It's like walking away and coming back with clear eyes,
like,
or fresh eyes, something like that.
But
Mom, you're watching. What is that saying?
But I think that it comes back to that whole self-evaluation of taking care of yourself. And that's a little difficult because we've always been taught to take care of everything else and everything around us and just deal with the situation, where we don't think to take care of ourselves. And what you're saying, Ava, is a great opportunity, because that gives you that opportunity to say, I'm taking care of myself, but still being able to come back to the situation with a fresh eye. So.
Right. A lot of it too is I have found, like Pepper mentioned previously, waking up in the middle of the night, almost in an anxiety attack. Something starts in your brain, and it's that thought worm that gets going, and it gets, and I literally the same thing, have woken up in the middle of the night in a full-blown panic mode. And the only thing that really calms that for me is I literally have to sit there and just listen to myself breathe, concentrate on my breath. Everything else kind of fades away. The thoughts fade away. All I do is concentrate on that. And it brings me out of that panic and anxiety that, and the other thing I wanted to mention was, just because you don't think somebody's issue is serious, to them, it is a world crisis. So be aware when somebody says, oh, I have anxiety. Okay. How do you deal with that? This is how I deal with it. Sometimes, saying that to somebody else, they go, oh, I'm not the only person, because sometimes we feel we're all by ourselves, especially over the last year and a half. It's like, haven't left your house in over a year, you feel like you're on your own, and to hear somebody else say, I go through that same thing daily, can really have a big impression on someone.
I know that I used to have that issue where I would, my mind would not shut off to go to sleep. And the way I dealt with that was I actually listened to audiobooks at a very, very low level, because it helps me shut my mind off. It also helps me stay asleep because it influences subconsciously your REM cycle.
Right.
So that your mind doesn't start, bouncing back to the things that you can't get out of your head, and turning your mind back on because you're subconsciously listening to this. Another good way to do that is, the white sound machines, the rain noise maker thingies, and that kind of.
I have one of those.
Yeah, I do the, usually if I wake up and can't fall back to sleep, then I'll usually ask Alexa to play white sounds in the background, either, waves crashing on the shore or listening to rain. When I was younger, I used to love, when we camped, you could hear the rain hitting the top of the trailer and it sounded like a rain stick. And it just is so soothing. So sometimes it's just, soothing things like that, will calm me. Or I have my dog Milo, and I'll just grab him and snuggle with him, and he loves, he is really my anxiety dog, as I so to speak, because he knows when I'm depressed or upset. He does not like to see me upset. So he's really become, my antisocial, or anti-anxiety dog. And he helps me through a lot of things. Not only do you have friends to reach out to, but I live alone, and I have, my dog Milo. So he's always there for me.
I think that
Oh,
brings up
is
a really
anyone
good
saying anything
point.
in Facebook land?
I think that actually really brings up a really good point, is service animals.
Yeah.
There's emotional support animals as well that are technically service animals. So that they say that, what is it, that they have like a sixth sense for sensing emotions and things like that. So
Yeah.
whether you're portraying it or not, they're sensing it. So that's
He knows if I'm mad, because the bad words come out of the mouth and he runs. But no, then he'll come up and he'll want to be close by, and he knows when I'm upset.
Well, Lava
So
is my
yeah, dude, they sense it.
my service animal. She definitely helps me.
Well,
So with that being said,
Who knew bears could be service animals?
right? And then of course my daughter Pepper, she runs when I get mad, so it kind of works out. So with that being said, mental health is definitely a stigma and a huge thing within our community, any community. So with that being said, just watch out for your family, watch out for people in your community, and just sit there and talk, just like we were all saying, have them sit down and just chill. I mean, that's all you need to do. And usually that's a really big step forward for them, is to actually sit there and talk. So,
and a lot of that also is having open mind, because what may trigger them is something minuscule that in your world, but it's like what Pepper or somebody, Ava, was saying, was that it is a big ordeal. Even the little smallest thing can trigger something that you don't know what they've dealt with. Like with my PTSD, if something triggers it, I'm like, well, that's kind of stupid in my own mind, but it still has that triggered emotion and thought process of, I'm being too much, I'm a burden, I need to get out of the way and disappear. So I think a lot of it is just opening yourself up to just listen. You don't have to have the answers, you can just listen. And sometimes that's the best.
With the perfect segue of trigger, this coming out day has triggered a lot of people, whether it's positive or not positive. Coming out day is a day in October that they signified as a day to come out of the closet and be your authentic self, be you, and be proud of who you are. As sisters, we do that. We encourage you, not allow you. We encourage you to be yourself and be who you are, and never let anybody take that power, that wonderfulness away from you. So, with that being said, I'm going to put the question out there: is any of you all have any coming out stories?
I always share mine.
Yeah, I shared mine too. So last year.
But mine was, I came out in 1995, and I had 17 high school seniors. That was back in the day. And I remember coming out, my dad kicked me out of the house, and I called my mother and grandmother and talked to my mother and came out to her. And the words from my grandmother was, do I say goodbye to you now or when you're dead of AIDS? And so I ended up at a young age in 1995 of just realizing that I'm on my own. Like, I have to take care of myself. And that's when I found people in the community that were open and there for me. And that's why I do a lot of the things I do, is because I want to repay that back to a community that took me in when I had no idea of anything and really excelled me in that direction. And I can honestly say I spent a lot of years dealing with thought processes, and it was never accepted in very small country town, like I said. So it was very frowned upon. My dad didn't react with me on it. Like, it was a lot of stuff going on. So that coming out was a little traumatic, but I look back now and I'm like, it did help develop me into the person that I am today. And that's a good thing, because maybe I needed that guidance and that right step into that direction to be who I am today. So
Anybody else?
I had the opposite experience. I was outed by a family member to my family. I didn't get the opportunity to talk to them privately one-on-one. Mine was done pretty much at a family event, and somebody thought it would be really, really funny to out me to my family. So, I mean, it happens to, we can all come out in different ways, different styles, to different people. Some of us talk to our mothers, some to our fathers, some to our whole families. Some people don't talk at all. Some people don't come out to their families. And understand that is your choice. How you do that is your choice. It's not my job or responsibility to out anyone else. When we talk about, movie stars and celebrities should come out, that's their choice. That is not our job to make them do that. Would we like to know? Absolutely, we would. However, you can still be a supporter of the LGBTQ community and still not come out for yourself. That's your option. But we're, as a sisters, I think we're here to support. I think that's one of our biggest strengths in our community, is we are here to support.
Do we have any comments from Facebook, Jared?
Yeah, a lot of the comments were about mental health. So let me get up there and kind of just reread this. So hi to Terry, who is a psychiatric nurse. Thank you for joining us this morning. Teresa said, thank you so much for being willingly able to talk about mental health. And I'm sure also she would enjoy us talking about coming out. And then Marissa, who is one of our amazing community advisory people. She is a big follower, and actually she's been following the sisters for 5 years now. So applause to her for doing that for a whole 5 years. She just replied to what Alana said. Thank you for sharing. I could relate to your coming out story. She was in the big city of San Francisco and got kicked out. Big city, small minds in that particular house. So even in like what we say, quote unquote, like our progressive bubbles that we, that people may be in, seems like, you could still find, unfortunately, some bigotry, some ignorance, some hate out there. So but that's the comments so far. Oh, and Marissa did also talk about keeping herself mentally healthy in the routine that she goes through. And I'm sure that's also related to, how she's working on herself after having an experience of coming out, right? It's all related again. So, but I'm going to ask more people, what's your coming out story?
Did you come out in a book like Cassandra Peterson? Elvira, for those of you who don't know my queen, or one of them rather.
19 years.
19 years since 2002. Good for her.
You go, girl.
Go. I thought it was interesting though.
In
What was
85.
that? I'm sorry, say it one more time.
I came out in 85.
Oh, did you? 85. Or someone pushed you out, rather, it sounds like.
Oh, pretty much, yeah. Yeah. But hey, it has been a wonderful experience for me after that situation. I don't think I would change anything in my life right now to where I am. Every part, even the painful parts of my life, have made me who I am today, which is the important part to celebrate.
Has anyone had a pleasant coming out story? I hear a lot, I myself included, we can easily find the negative one. Does anyone have a good one? Like, they were like, parents like, yeah, have a party. Let's get some pom-poms and some vibrators. No, I don't think anybody.
Yes, queen, yes.
Anyone have a good one? No?
I can say the only trauma I had coming out was the trauma I put on myself. My family was hugely accepting. In fact, I never said, "Hey, mom." My mom came to me and goes, "Do you think you're?" And I went, "I don't think I know."
Wait, what did she say? Do you think
That's
you
how.
were?
Yeah,
Was it
she
dot
just
dot
looked at me and
dot?
she goes, "I have a question," and immediately your blood pressure goes up, your heart rate goes up, and
Yeah.
you just know this is the question.
Yeah, it's
And
coming.
she just,
It's that moment.
Yeah, because
and she just goes, "Do
basically,
you think you're?" And I went, "I don't think I know." So,
Mhm.
So wait,
but
she didn't say the word. You just knew what was
no,
on her mind.
no, she never said the word. But
Mhm.
and then she proceeded to call on my brothers and sisters and tell them. So she outed everyone else. By that time, I didn't care. But this is interesting, and I'll tie this into mental health because the pressure of coming out was a big mental health anguish for me to the point because, and I'm the youngest of 7 kids, so I have a huge family I grew up in. And my older siblings were very much into a scene that I was not a part of. They were big partiers, they were big drinkers, they were big druggers. I say that because now you know my age. They were really into marijuana and trying anything and everything they could get their hands on. And at a very young age, I was like, I'm not doing that. How is that fun when I'm 6 years old rolling my big brother over so he doesn't drown in his own vomit? So I went the opposite extreme way and got involved in the church thing. And now all of a sudden, little gay boy is now dealing with the fact that I've got a preacher standing up there telling me that I'm going to hell because I like God. So that was a whole nother pressure in the church world. And I had to make peace with that and myself. And that was a big deal. And for a long time, I contemplated suicide several times because I was at odds with my personal beliefs, with who I was as a person. And I finally had to make peace with the fact that, and you hear people quote Leviticus all the time, and now there are some really good scholars out there who tell you that those words are wrong, and the King James was updated in 1946, and that's where those words were added. But at the time, when you're a kid, you don't have access to that information. You just have that book, and you know that book says this, and you're battling, and that's all up here. It's all of a mental thing. And my issue was I finally stopped listening to what everybody was saying and read the whole book for myself and came to the conclusion that if we are made in God's image and God is omnipresent, all knowing, all seeing, all hearing, and he's the creator, then he created me this way. So how, and he doesn't make mistakes. So
Jared.
if I'm gay, he knew it before I was born and he created me this way. So this is not a mistake. So my feelings in this area are not wrong. Your hatred and your preach hatred is wrong. So
Right.
that was the end of my
I'm with you.
my attachment to organized religion. And I just decided that you want to be religious, fantastic, good for you, great for you. But I don't need that building anymore. I don't need that church anymore. I don't need somebody spewing their hatred at me from a pulpit. I can close the door in my bedroom and get on my knees and talk to God if that's what I need to do.
One of the
So-
coolest sayings that I ever heard, and it can be taken as a joke, it can be taken as funny, it can be taken as serious. It's meant to make you really sit back and think. But what is the difference between organized religion and a cult? One is socially acceptable.
Well, I
tell
think
you.
that decides on what religion you're talking to. If you ask some of the organized religions like Southern Baptists or whatever, they'll be quickly to tell you that the Mormon religion is a cult. And they'll be quick to tell you, I personally, I think it's about self-destruction and about what you're spewing. I read that book and I see a lot of talk about love and acceptance and understanding. You know, there's truth to he is born without sin, cast the first stone. You know, judge not lest you be judged. They admit those verses. They don't follow that stuff. They follow the hate. And that book was never meant to be used as a weapon. It's meant to be a guideline for life. So
a lot of it, as a theologist, I grew up as a preacher's kid, so I had it from both sides, and all the time. Understand that when people talk about we as gay people, we are created in the image of God. We all are. We all are God's children. Whatever religion you tend to subscribe to, you are a special creature. And a lot of other worldly religions see us as special creatures because we are two spirits. As our Navajo, nation will contest to, we are those special people. We are smart, we're educated, we're talented, we're able to speak in public. We are a group of people that is unique just unto ourselves. And when you talk about organized religion is only there to use fear to keep you in line.
I think this is all like, this all brings up a really, really good point, that what we're talking about from the very, very beginning here is even these little differences in opinions and beliefs, these can create mental issues,
definitely.
mental
Most definitely.
problems, mental, it can build you up, it can tear you down.
Struggles.
And it's all just one simple little difference. Doesn't mean one's right or one's wrong.
Exactly. I think
but it all comes back to it, even coming out, all of it comes down to the things that we think and the opinions of others all affect everyone. It doesn't just affect you anymore.
How many people have seen a Facebook post? You haven't failed as a parent if you have a gay child. You failed as a parent if you kick that child out of your life.
I've seen that post, and that boggles my mind because my parents were so accepting. And even when I was dating people, my mom and dad were like, I want to meet this person. And I have exes that, well, my dad's passed, but they adore my mom and they still go visit my mom, and they're my exes.
What's your mom and dad's name? Let's take a moment to honor that.
My mom and dad,
Yeah.
Margie and Ray.
Margie and Ray, world, send Margie and Ray good vibes. Make sure they spread that type of behavior around.
Right.
So thank you, Margie and Ray.
That boggles my mind to know that people, and I see it all the time, especially on TikTok, April, is you see kids sitting there with tears running down their face. I just came out and I got kicked out. I was told I got 5 minutes to pack my bags, and now what do I do? And
leaving their life behind.
That boggles my mind. How can you throw your kid out? Well, I don't have any kids, but how can you do that? But because my coming out issue, my acceptance was it was nothing. It wasn't even a speed bump. The problem I had was my own self, not being accepted.
I think it's funny too, because I can remember a time before I even came out that my mom tried to have the birds and the bees talk with me. And her first question was, well, do you like boys? And I remember me trying to be like, oh, no, I don't. But in my mind, I was. But it was kind of weird that like they knew at that point that was there, evidently, because why would you question that? Like, no reason to, nobody in the family, no friends, nothing like that. But then later on, when I did come out, there was such a big difference of connect there. And, them saying one thing and being like, okay, maybe we can curb it or something, triggered me whenever I did come out to be really harsh and just be like, okay, well, if you're not going to want me, then I'm just going to go my own separate way. Goodbye. Like, evidently you're telling me I'm not good enough. So it does trigger you in the long run, and still connecting with your family members, because my dad and I are still not close, but we're working on it to get back on track to where we were. But it's still something that just does not get talked about or looked at or joked around about or anything like that. So
a lot of it too is,
we also have to look at it like we're all focused right now, unfortunately, on our point of view. while I don't agree that you should kick your child out or anything like that, but we need to take a moment and stop and be like, okay, well, in their mind, that was the right thing because maybe that was their mental issue. Maybe that was their mental handicap or whatever you want to call it. We can't always just look at everything from our perspective. We have to stop and be like, okay, now wait a second, hold up. I know I have an issue with it, but let me look at it from their perspective. And that's what's going to start that dialogue to get past these mental health issues.
And I think that that's helped a lot with what my dad and I rekindling and coming back together is me realizing that there was a time period where it wasn't, and it was in the 95s when it just started coming more mainstream and known out there. So I can't fault them for what they did because that's, like you said, that's their issue, that's their thought process and something they have to live with and what for it. But it does affect you in the long run sometimes too, is the down effect, unfortunately. But I think once you start accepting and realizing that you don't have to be happy with everybody and everybody doesn't have to be happy with you, that you start living your authenticated life, really.
And you yourself don't always have to be happy either. That's okay. You don't have to be happy all the time. You can be mad, you can be upset, you can be sad. That's okay.
Well, the biggest thing that I said is when people would ask how I'm doing, I don't know. And it's, I've heard from people, it's okay to not know. It's okay. Just to know that where you are and where it's happening. One announcement I did want to make is that our cardinal and also founder, Sister Adora, is watching from her wherever she is in her penthouse somewhere.
On the great beyond.
There. She's on the chat. She says hi.
She's getting a little nip tuck
Spiritual
down.
nipple tweaks just for you.
Hi, Adora.
Miss you.
So, I mean, this is a great conversation that we're having about, not only mental health, but also coming out day. It definitely goes into the next topic, which is Spirit Day. Spirit Day was started in 2010, and it was started as an LGBT awareness day. And basically, it focused on bullying for being LGBTQ, and you wear purple on the third Thursday of the month. And it's just supposed to spread awareness about how you're treating people. So it's going off the topics of what we've already discussed, but there is a day that tells us this stuff that we need to be more aware, not only of ourselves, but of others and how we treat others and how we are treated. I mean, there's a lot of people that want to just call out bullying and saying you're being a bully. Well, okay, well, let's discuss this about what's going on. Am I, how am I being a bully? Discussing. And most people just say, screw you, I'm not a bully, and they get angry and do all that kind of stuff. But if they have that discussion and that dialogue back and forth, I don't think the bullying would be the way it is. And I also think that, in schools and stuff like that, whether it's elementary school, high school, college, whatever, the educators, the social workers, the counselors really need to get on top of that. But it also comes to the parents and those who, raise that person. It's education all around is what I'm trying to say. This day was created for that reason to spark that conversation, to have that discussion. And, it's a wonderful day. I never knew what Spirit Day was until last year. I found out what Spirit Day was. And it's again, another day in our history, our LGBTQ history, that it's not just a day, it's every day. It's, whether your religion or your ethnicity or your culture, whatever, it is every day. It's not just a day, it's not just a month, it's every day. And we just need to remember that and remember what we do also, could affect somebody, like somebody said, differently in our discussion. So, a lot of the coming out days and stuff like that, coming out stories, or even just mental health has to deal with bullying. And bullying is very, very bad. I know that it's gone from just being, teased on the playground back in my days to now virtual and doing things online and social networking. I mean, they've done movies about it. And there was the movie, I think it was a new movie on Netflix, a series that talked about it. And it's a very serious situation going on, and you know, we just need to be there. And I know as sisters, we expiate stigmatic guilt. We don't like bullying, we don't like doing anything like that. We strive against that. And you know, as sisters, that's what we strive to be. We strive to be those that want to comfort and care, and you know, be there for the person no matter what. And so bullying is a factor in our community, not only in our community, but everywhere else. And it sucks. And I have to call out, you know, even my family members that may be bullying. Don't be doing that. You can't be doing that. That's wrong. And yeah, they may get mad at me, but you know, that me saying something, me standing up for that person or standing up for myself will actually make that person hopefully think about what they just did. And you know, maybe down the line, somebody does that to them, they'll be like, you know what, this is what I did, and hopefully they'll come to terms. That's the hope that we can only, you know, ask for. But anybody else want to say anything on that?
I do. Understanding that a lot of our younger LGBT families are coming out much earlier. They're not waiting until their middle 20s or when they're in college. They're coming out in high schools and grammar schools and saying, this is me. This is the authentic me. Boys wearing makeup to school, you know, girls having flat top haircuts, you know, being themselves. And it is so important for us as a community, because I can tell you now, you go to Gay Pride in November, excuse me, you're going to see a lot more young people there that we have not seen in the past. So that is a part of our community that is growing all the time. And those kids are bullied in school. You know, I know I was horribly, and I did not think that I could stick up for myself. So that was my big thing. But understanding there are a lot more younger people coming out now than what was when I came out.
Those of you on Facebook land, if you want to be a sister, you don't have to be gay, you don't have to be a boy, you don't have to be a girl, you could be anything and join us. So we're talking a lot about that, but sometimes if you need to get strength, sometimes doing this, the sister process can help you find parts of you didn't even realize, even without having to remove a rib. Why don't you come on and join us? So if you're out there and you want to explore something new, come talk to us. We're happy to talk to you if you ever want to explore what spiritual growth you can have in person with a sister too. It's not, we all people, gay, straight, Republicans, Democrats, anything in between, whatever you are.
And everyone looks good in glitter, so never doubt it.
Fact.
Except for Barbara Bush.
Yeah, I think like the biggest thing that we're seeing, and Navi kind of touched on it, is that like the Spirit Day was really started in 2010 because of the excessive online bullying that's happening. Because when you're able to hide behind a screen, even with a fake username, you know, my name is Barbara Bush, I'm going to be all bullying on you. You don't really know who that person is. You don't know where they live. You can't find them. So it's really making anonymity a big part of the problem when it comes to cyberbullying. And what we see is a lot of students at schools, middle school, elementary school, even, but particularly high school, they're hiding behind those screens. They're making fake profiles, and then they're hurting each other. And people that they know, not just like strangers, but also people they know. And the more you know somebody, the more fuel you have, right, to really damage and hurt them. So we're seeing a lot of that. We're seeing, you know, like 70% of students in schools, especially LGBT youth, are saying, I feel I have been harassed or bullied at some point, and we don't have the resources for that. I mean, speaking about mental health, we don't have enough school psychologists, we don't have enough counselors to be able to deal with that. I mean, the average, I think in Arizona a couple of years ago for counselor to student ratio was like 400 to 1 or something insane. How are you going to ever meet all of those students? How are you ever going to know all of them? You know, so we're talking about really wanting to save lives, and going back to the Trevor Project, we really need to focus on the resources and making sure that students are feeling secure in the ability to, I say students because I'm an educator, but the youth are feeling supported in what they do, our LGBTQ youth. And Polana is correct that all of the students that I had last year, pretty much except one, I think, came out as trans, and I had like 25 of them in the GSA. And it's because we're creating more accepting space for to allow them to come out. I mean, for them to come out. And so it's not really that more people are like converting, or, you know, like that's like they're just coming over to the gay side, but they're just realizing who they are at an earlier age. And so we're seeing that wave of youth come in And wow, don't we need to like love and accept them, even if they're not our kids, right? We need to support them. So you'll be seeing us on that note at Pride. We'll be at the Pride Parade, and we will also probably be there blocking protesters to kind of get rid of some of that hate and to bring more joy and remove more stigma as well. So that's November 6th, if I remember correctly. We'll be there at early in the morning, but the Pride Parade starts at 10. So come join
What's
us.
Facebook saying? Anything? Yelling
Also
at
to
us,
add,
Mary?
also to add on to what Sister Jareth is saying, that we need to make sure that we have the visibility. Okay, let me see if I can say what was in my head here. The visibility of the accessibility of mental health services, because with COVID, a lot of schooling has gone virtual. And, you know, it's like, you know, back in our day, it was homeschooling, you know, so you don't have that access to having a counselor right there on site nowadays as you did back then. So having the accessibility out there is just as important, if not more today than it was then. And the gay side, the dark gay side has glitter and cookies.
Yeah.
Mhm. That is very true. And, you know, just like what Sister Jared, you know, people are coming out earlier and stuff like that. But, you know, and that it's become more acceptable as we see it not only on mainstream TV, but, you know, on, you know, movies and stuff like that. You know, we see that kind of stuff. But we also need to not forget about those pioneers, those ones from the past that stood up for us and allowed us to be who we are. You know, there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of them still around that, you know, they are still fighting the fight because, you know, it's not over.
And then
And
bringing that education forward too, because
Mhm.
without the education, we probably wouldn't be where we are now. And if we can continue that education, because a lot of the younger generations are kind of like, oh, well, that's old school. I don't need to know about that. But it is history, and it's what made us to where we are, where we're surviving and taking care of each other and forming those families.
Yeah.
Can we just stop for a moment and address what novice Sister Polana just put in the chat? Can you elaborate on that, Polana?
I can. There was a post on Facebook from the San Francisco house about one of our founding sisters just passed away. And honestly, I'd have to look it up to tell you which one. But, you know, my comment was, it is so sad to lose more history. Because these sisters, they tell stories when it wasn't acceptable for us to do all of this. So it's one of those things where, you know, is this all going to last forever? Possibly not. People will come, people will go, sisters will be there, they will grow, they will move on in their life, new sisters will come in. But understanding this is history in the making. Every time we go out into the community and we touch lives, we are making history.
I mean, one of the cool things that I saw on the post was that the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, the lettering, the calligraphy that was used for the website and stuff like that was actually done by the sister. And I thought that was amazing. There's, you know, a stamp, not only whatever the sister may have done in the community, but there's a stamp on all of our lives as far as being Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, and knowing that this iconic name was done by this great sister who is no longer here, but is now part of the Nuns of the Above. And that's just a like you said, it's a part of the history and stuff like that. That is just amazing that we'll always keep and, you know, just around. So does anybody else have any closing things to say before we end here? I mean, this is just, I mean, it's mental health. And like I said, mental health, you know, bullying coming out, you know, there are some good things about that, but there are some bad things, a lot of bad things about that. And, you know, we as sisters are here to help elevate you and allow you to be encourage you to be your bestest best. And is there anybody else that would like to say anything?
I just want to give a shout out to one of our supporting organizations that are actually, as we say, where the rubber meets the road, and actually go out and protect kids. And that is Bikers Against Child Abuse. And we've done several fundraisers for them, but it's a fantastic organization that stands up against bullying and fights for the rights of kids. So I just wanted to give them a shout out because they're a fantastic organization.
And they look
And,
good doing it too.
Well, yes, they're wonderful people, and if you ever get a chance to talk to them, don't hesitate. They're fantastic. And on that same thing, I just wanted to reiterate. We never really talked because Ava talked about what defines a cult, and we're coming out of a political administration that built its whole premise on hate, and it has impacted a lot of people, and a lot of people are now stuck in that mire. A lot of people are, in my opinion, and I'm going to call them Trumplicans. To me, the more and more I listen to them, the more and more I see it. That's how I define a cult. And a lot of people are starting to wake up and realize they've made a drastic mistake. So some people are coming out of it and realizing that they went down a really dark hole, and we need to be prepared. It's bad news, and there's a lot of hate, but I also see a lot of points of light that are happening. I see hope, and I see love overtaking this hate. It's gonna take time, and it's gonna be like water and oil for a little bit. But I do see massive amounts of people circulating and saying this is not acceptable. We're not going to put up with this. And they're circling that's a bad phrase. They're circling the wagons, but they're wrapping arms around the love of a lot of people who've experienced hate. The latest thing I saw was some teacher putting on a fake headdress and running around a classroom, whooping it up like she was some kind of, it was terrible, making fun of Native Americans. It was just awful. And there was thousands of people who stood up and said, this is not acceptable. We're not going to deal with this, especially since it was Native American people in that class who had to sit there and watch that. And I also saw another instance in another school where students actually took a Native American child and pushed him down and cut his hair. And he was Lakota Sioux, and their hair has a spiritual significance to them. And a lot of people have really wrapped this kid in around the arms of love, and those people have been dealt with. So when you see a lot of hate, there's also the after effect, and you got to make sure you pay attention to the support people and the support groups, because it's there, it's happening. It's just not getting the same attention as the hate incident. So, but I think Spirit Day is a fantastic thing. And I think we as sisters probably should push that more and publicize that more, because that is a day to say your hatred is not acceptable. And we need to just start really pushing back on that. Because when we put that face on, as all of you do, and I was too lazy to do it today, that really impacts people who see us. It has an immediate reaction, and that does change lives. You may not realize it, but for our novices, when you're out at Pride, people are going to come up to you and say, a sister in San Francisco or in LA impacted my life so much, it saved my life. You're going to hear these stories as you progress in your path, and I've heard them more times than I can count. And I've had that impact me on my own with a gentleman who was coming out and felt like he wasn't accepted and was going to commit suicide. And my just happened to say hi to him, and smiling at him gave him hope, and he decided not to do it. So he had to tell me when I was in full face and wearing watercolors. So that was not a pretty thing. But we do impact. And every time you put that face on, you're pushing back hate. And we just need to make sure that we understand that we need to make sure when we're out, we are smiling and talking and saying hello. And sometimes it's just a hello to everybody we see.
Right.
Even a wave.
And it will never happen when you expect it. Like you were saying, you're wearing
Exactly
certain colors
right.
that are going to just go haywire, because I've had that happen many a times. But I love that because it just invigorates me to learn and pass on that education and that feeling, like you said, of just flashing a smile. Like Dolly says, like, you know, if you see somebody without a smile, give them yours.
Right. The sister that passed away was William Stewart. He was Sister Succuba. He passed away on Thursday evening with his home and with family around. There will be a service, but he was part of the group from October of 1980 when all of this started. Everybody breathe.
And the more you know, the better you are.
Anybody else want to say anything before we close out this? Nope. All right. Well, next month we'll be doing another talking circle. We will be doing Native American Heritage Month, and I will be bringing in a couple of my friends from the community to talk about the Native American heritage and LGBTQ issues and two-spirits and all the other things that go along with that. And I'm pretty sure, Sugar, what you were talking about, the boy who got his hair cut and the lady that did what she did during the day will probably be discussed because that was a big thing. And of course, the missing and murdered Indigenous women is always a topic. So look forward to that next month. We'll see what happens. Just look for our emails, look for our messages, look for our stuff. So on behalf of the Grand Canyon Sisters, I would like to thank you all for being here. And I want to thank all my sisters for being here too. And thank you. And we will see you next month.
Hey, Mimosa. Unpleasant dreams.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.